So you got disrespected by a quote unquote bad B. She done defecated on your manhood, defecated on your image, defecated on your respect, and you just don't know how to deal with that, man. So what pimping is here to do is slice up this humble pie and show you how to serve slices of this humble pie to these disrespectful quote unquote bad B's. So we gonna get into it, man. But first, wipe your feet off at the door when you step into a pimp's domain. Let's go.
Bitch, you want all this pimping you can't afford. Perform like a punk, but wanna win his reward. Some suckers give you points, but bitch, you never scored. If you ain't paying pimping, then bitch, you getting ignored.
Okay.
I'm so sick of these.
So before you can understand how to deal with these quote unquote bad ones and how to put them in their place and serve them a slice of this humble pie, you got to put things in a proper perspective. So that's what we're going to do first. Right now, this is what you got to understand about the woman. The ones who have a tendency to be disrespectful, right? They all come from the same family tree of disrespect, and how a lot of them are created, how a lot of them are made into the monsters that they are, is from a long line of simps. These simp dudes, they tolerate a lot of disrespect from these chicks. They've used a lot of dudes as doormats. A lot of these dudes been doormats to a broad. So they let a woman walk all over them, treat them any kind of way, and they still grant her, you know, the utmost respect and the, you know, queen treatment and all that type of stuff. So what that does to a lot of chicks, especially the young ones, is it gives them a complex about themselves that they can do no wrong. And they can treat a man any kind of way, and it doesn't matter because that man is still going to treat them the way they want to be treated in spite of how they treat them, the man. So that, and then they get showered with compliments in spite of how they act and in spite of how they behave. They can be the least classy, the most ashy and trashy, and the most disrespectful, the most inconsiderate. And in spite of all of that, they still get showered with compliments and, you know, royal treatment and all that type of stuff. And every gesture of simping to them serves as a deposit into their confidence bank account. So they become more and more confident in themselves, especially their looks, especially who are kind of vain. And, you know, they think the world of their looks, and that's where most of their confidence comes from. You know, it comes from a long line of simping, right? So oftentimes this is how these women are made. And then too, you know, they don't take no for an answer because these simps don't tell them no. So they don't even know how to comprehend the word no when it comes to them getting what they want. They rarely ever get told no. So they feel entitled to certain things, and one of the things they feel entitled to is respect from a man just based on the fact that they're a woman, and they think that they the finest thing in the world. So this is how these monsters are made. Now that's putting things in perspective with the woman. Now this is a thing on how you humble a woman. First, you have to put things in perspective with yourself. See, a lot of times guys magnify a woman to a point where they minimize who they are as a man and don't keep in mind who they are as a man and the validity of their manhood. Now, when you a man that's responsible, you're a leader, you have integrity, and you just carry yourself with class, and you on some grown man shit, and you know, you just handle your business. You got to understand that that alone makes you out of the league of most of these chicks, right? Most of these chicks don't deserve a real grown man that got his stuff together, that is responsible, classy, a gentleman, solid, secure, all that stuff. Most of these chicks do not deserve somebody like you. So the moment they show you that attitude, the moment they display that attitude, it needs to set a signal off in your mind immediately that you're out of this chick's league. So that's the first thing to understand. Once you get that locked into your mind, then it's so much easier to shit on a quote unquote bad bitch. It's so much easier to serve her that big old slice of humble pie when you keep this in mind, right? So within keeping this in mind, within keeping in mind who you are as a man, what makes you important, what makes you valuable as a man, within keeping all of that in mind, you have to understand that when you humble a chick, it can't come from a place of hurt. It can't come from a place of scorn, because a real grown man that's a gentleman and classy and secure and all of that within himself, he don't walk around scorned. We don't walk around scorned because we have our self-esteem intact. When you have your self-esteem intact, you don't walk around scorned. That's why the women walk around scorned, and that's why they put so much emphasis on their vanity, how they look, and that's where most of their confidence comes from, because deep down inside they're insecure. And you have to keep in mind that they're insecure, and that's why they treat you the way that they do, because they have to, they have to steal your strength and feel confident in themselves at your expense. That's what makes them feel confident about themselves, at the expense of belittling you and embarrassing you and making a mockery of you, right? So when you keep all of that in mind, and again, you're not walking around scorn, and you're not on some get back shit like, I gotta get her back, and I gotta, you're not doing it from a place of that. You're doing it from a place of you securing who you are, and you just putting things in perspective for this chick, right? So now that you have everything in perspective, these chicks, they become very disrespectful, man. You might just say hello to a chick, and she might just, fly off the handle just at you saying hello to her. Or you might not even be trying to get at her. You might ask her, if she knows where it's a convenience store or a gas station around here or something. You might just ask her a question or whatever without even trying to get at her. And a lot of these chicks, again, because they're so vain and confident within their looks, they just assume that any man that's talking to them wants to get in their pants, so they trying to get at them. That might not even be the case. But even if it is the case, the disrespect will not be tolerated. Not from no fly ass, grown ass, gamed up, responsible man. Hell no. Right? So me, I like to strip them. That's how I serve the humble pie, by stripping them of what makes them confident. So if all of their confidence, or the main source of their confidence, is how they look and the fact that they're a female, you strip them of that power by making it clear right away that don't mean nothing to you, and that don't move you, and you're not dying to have that. In fact, you don't want that. Like, your attitude is so ugly, your attitude is just as ugly as your looks, and I don't I'm not dealing with that. So me, now this is just my way of doing things. I'm a roaster, man. I love roasting. It's nothing like putting a woman in a place like roasting their ass, right? And again, you roasting from a place of being unbothered. You're not roasting from a place of anger. You're not roasting from a place of scorn. You roasting from a place of being unfazed, but you're not going to tolerate no disrespect, though. That's all that is. You're not about to disrespect, especially you. Like, 9 times out of 10, you got to put things in perspective for them, because you've already put things in perspective for yourself. Now you got to paint the picture for them, right? Because the reality is, 9 times out of 10, you don't mean anything to anybody. Nobody benefits by knowing you. You ain't got nothing going on in life. And even if you do, nobody you mean nothing to anybody. You're not valuable to anybody. Again, nobody benefits by knowing you, so you're not that important, right? bunch of simps who don't love themselves, who hate themselves, you know, and made you think the world of yourself, you know, that you might think you important to them, but the only reason why they deal with you is because they don't understand their value. Any man that understand their value wouldn't even deal with you, right? But see, you know, this is how I paint the picture, of course, in a much more humorous way, because I'm sizing everything up, and whatever she thinks the world of about herself, I'm shrinking that. I'm shrinking that. So if she got a nice body, I'm gonna tell her that she fat, or I'm gonna tell her, you know, I'm gonna just strip that away from her. If that's where her confidence is, if her confidence comes from, you know, the lace front and the lashes, oh, that's the easiest thing to strip. That's the easiest thing to strip away from a chick that is, you know, disrespectful, and she got that on. They the easiest ones to break down. Break you down like a shotgun, like easy. You know what I mean? But yeah, the bottom line is, man, you know, this is where the sense of humor come in. Now, you know, me myself, like I said, I got the sense of humor, and I like to roast, but you might not even have to roast. It might not even be funny, but sometimes the truth is funny. And, you know, whether it's funny or not, the key is to put things in perspective for the chick. Paint the picture of reality. Like, listen, we not on social media. We not in the DM. You know, we right here. I see you in real life. I know what's going on. And then, you know, sometimes these things take place on social media. And if it does take place on social media, you know, it's on you to be able to put things in perspective just based on her behavior, because apple trees come from apple seeds. So if she's bearing the fruit of an apple, then you know it comes from the tree of an apple, which comes from the seed of an apple, right? So you got to be able to identify the root by the fruit. So if she has this kind of fruit, then you know it's coming from this kind of root. So it's easy to break down. You know what I mean? And often what it does is it's gonna make a chick angry, especially at the fact that you not kissing her ass, and you not, you know, bowing down to her, and you not serving as a doormat to her. And, you know, you're making it very clear that you're out of her league, that she can't even have it. She don't even qualify to have a man like you in her life. You dig? But, you know, again, like I said, my way is the humor, but you don't have to be humorous about it, and you don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to be, again, you don't want to come from a place of anger or scorn, but it's nothing wrong with putting a chick in her place by, you know, putting things in perspective for her, letting her know who you are and what you are, and reminding her of who she is and what she is, that she tries to mask with this image that's not really who she is. You know, it's a beautiful thing when you can make it clear to a chick, like, look, just like I could look through water, muddy water, and spot dry land, I could look through you and see somebody that's very small. You're not nearly as big as you're trying to make yourself seem, and you know that, right? But again, what's going to empower you as a man to be able to put a woman in her place and shit on her, you know, if need be, is to have your self-esteem intact and keep your value in mind. Because again, like I said, that's where a lot of dudes make the mistake and allow themselves to be disrespected by these chicks, is to not keep their value in mind. And, you know, they might suffer from a low self-esteem they damn self. So, you know, a low self-esteem man versus a low self-esteem woman, 9 times out of 10, the woman gonna win, because even though y'all both have a low self-esteem, it's different for a woman. You know, she's confident in her looks. She's confident in the fact that she's a woman, and, you know, all these dudes is trying to get in her pants in spite of her behavior, in spite of her character, in spite of her personality. She always gonna have dudes trying to get in her pants, and, you know, that makes her confident in spite of the low self-esteem. So, you know, a lot of dudes confuse the confidence with a high self-esteem, and that's not the case. You dig? The bottom line is, man, don't ever tolerate a woman being disrespectful to you, and understand how to put things in perspective for her, so that you can serve her that humble pie, and she'll know that, yeah, all them other dudes is the one, but I ain't the one. You ain't gonna get me like that. I ain't going for that. And I ain't got no problem humbling your ass, you dig? But let that marinate in your mind one time, freezes it. And this right here, it's that love juice, man. Go ahead and put some of this good old love in your body like so. And of course, as always, long live the incomparable Sinful to P. We out.
Let's go. You see, the God anointed game appointed PI since knee high. Knew that God appointed me to be fly. My reply to the blessing, only one decision for me, man, that integrated and demonstrated it's obligatory. Okay. So begins the story, these blessings I'm not in tune with.
But getting back to this game that I never left.
Baby, yeah, where you been?